"Evangeline, how could you humiliate us like this in front of everyone?" my cousin Thessaly screamed, as wedding guests whispered and pointed in the ornate ballroom of the Grandview Manor. "You destroyed Ophelia's perfect day. We trusted you to handle the service, and you made us look like fools." The entire family was staring at me in absolute horror. My Aunt Cordelia, clutching her pearls, my Uncle Bartholomew's face red with embarrassment, my sister Persephone backing away like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. Even the bride, my cousin Ophelia, was staring at me with tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. I looked at all of them, these people who had spent the last decade treating me like their personal servant, and said with complete calm, "You're absolutely right. I did humiliate you." But what they didn't know was that the humiliation they witnessed wasn't the real shock of that evening. The truth? I had been protecting every single one of them from a scandal that could have destroyed not just this wedding, but our entire family's reputation in Crystalline Heights society. And they were about to find out exactly what happens when that protection disappears. Starting with why Supreme Court Justice Margaret Whitmore had just asked the wedding coordinator to find Judge Williams at what was supposed to be a simple family celebration. Let me tell you something about family weddings in Crystalline Heights. They're not celebrations of love. They're performances of social status. Elaborate theater productions where everyone has a role to play and the family reputation is the real guest of honor. But when you're the one who's been organizing, funding, and executing these performances for years, while being treated like the hired help, they become something entirely different. They become the stage where years of resentment, hidden truths, and carefully maintained facades finally collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. I'm Evangeline Rosewood, though most people in my family just call me Eva when they need something done. I'm 34. And I've been living this particular nightmare for the past 8 years. But tonight, at my cousin Ophelia's wedding to Camden Ashworth III, in the most prestigious venue in our affluent suburb of Crystalline Heights, everything was about to change. Tonight, the carefully constructed lies that held our family together were going to crumble, and I was going to be the one holding the sledgehammer. It all started innocently enough, the way these things always do. I had just been appointed as the youngest federal judge in the history of the Northern District Court of Millbrook at age 26, and suddenly I was making more money than I knew what to do with. More importantly, I had achieved something that should have made my family proud: a lifetime appointment to the federal bench, a position of genuine respect and authority. But pride, I learned, is a complicated emotion when it comes to family dynamics and social hierarchies. My family noticed my success, of course. They always notice when someone's doing well, especially when they're not. But instead of celebrating my achievement, they seem to view it as an opportunity. Not an opportunity to bask in reflected glory, but an opportunity to finally have someone in the family who could solve problems, provide resources, and handle all those tedious responsibilities that come with maintaining a certain social standing. The request started small and seemed reasonable. Could I use my legal connections to help cousin Thessaly get out of that unfortunate DUI charge? Could I maybe pick up the tab for the family reunion at Sapphire Lake Resort since my new salary was so generous? Could I perhaps host the annual Rosewood Christmas gathering since my new townhouse in the historic Willowbrook district was so perfect for entertaining? Of course I said yes. That's what family does, right? You use your success to lift up the people you love. But here's the thing about being helpful to family members. It's not actually about helping. It's about establishing a hierarchy where your success becomes their resource, your achievements become their tools, and your time becomes their property. They don't see your accomplishments as something to celebrate. They see them as something to exploit. That's exactly what happened to me, and it happened so gradually that I didn't realize I was being transformed from a respected federal judge into the family's personal problem solver and event coordinator until it was too late to change the dynamic, without causing what they would call unnecessary drama. It all started with birthday parties and holiday gatherings. My nephew Augustus was turning 10, and my sister Persephone was overwhelmed with work at her boutique marketing firm, Lux Communications, downtown. Eva, you're so organized and detail-oriented, and you know how much Augustus adores his Aunt Eva. Could you would you mind taking care of his party this year? She looked so frazzled, so genuinely stressed about balancing her career and single motherhood after her messy divorce from that investment banker, Harrison.
So, I planned Augustus's birthday party. I researched venues, interviewed entertainers, designed custom invitations, coordinated with parents, arranged catering from Sterling & Sons Gourmet, hired a professional photographer, and even created personalized party favors. The medieval night theme was elaborate and expensive, nearly $3,000. But seeing Augustus's face light up when he saw that castle bouncy house and the costumed knights performing sword-fighting demonstrations, it felt worth every penny and every hour of planning. The family was amazed. "Eva, you're incredible! How do you manage to think of everything? You should quit being a judge and become a professional party planner." That comment should have been my first warning sign. Not the compliment itself, but the casual suggestion that I abandon my distinguished legal career to become the family's full-time event coordinator. It revealed something about how they viewed my professional achievements, not as something meaningful in its own right, but as something secondary to my role as the family facilitator. But I was too pleased with their appreciation to notice the red flags. I was thinking about all the ways my success could improve not just my life, but my family's life, too. Maybe I could help Persephone expand her business with some legal advice about partnership agreements. Maybe I could use my judicial connections to help Uncle Bartholomew with his ongoing property dispute. Maybe I could leverage my position to open doors for the younger cousins who were just starting their careers. I was thinking like someone who had achieved success and wanted to share it with the people she loved most. What I didn't realize was that they were thinking about me the same way, as someone whose success was meant to be shared, but only in one direction. The pattern was established at that birthday party, though I didn't recognize it at the time. Everyone enjoyed the food, the entertainment, the perfectly coordinated activities. Everyone praised my efforts and told me how talented I was at this sort of thing. But when it came time to clean up, when the last guest had gone home with their party favor bags and the rental company needed to collect their equipment, when the venue had to be restored to its original condition, somehow, magically, it was just me and Augustus, stacking chairs and collecting forgotten toys, while everyone else had urgent reasons to leave early. No one offered to help with the cleanup. No one insisted on splitting the cost, even though half the family had been there enjoying the festivities and eating the gourmet food. No one suggested that maybe we should rotate who hosts these elaborate celebrations. They just packed up their leftover cake, loaded their happy children into their cars, and started planning the next event that somehow, inevitably, would become my responsibility. 3 weeks later, it was cousin Thessaly's 28th birthday. Eva, my Aunt Cordelia, called from her estate in Pembroke Hills. "Thessaly has been so stressed with her new position at Davidson & Associates. You know how sensitive she is about her birthday. Could you work your magic again?" Work my magic? As if I were some kind of fairy godmother whose purpose in life was to sprinkle happiness and perfection onto everyone else's special occasions. But I did it because that's what I thought family meant, using your talents and resources to create joy for the people you care about. Thessaly wanted a sophisticated wine tasting party, so I researched local vineyards, contacted Bordeaux and Beyond Wine Bar in the Arts District, arranged private tastings, created elegant invitations with custom calligraphy, hired a sommelier to provide educational commentary, and even arranged transportation so no one would have to worry about driving. Another $1,800. Another flawless event. Another round of, "Eva, you're amazing!" followed by everyone going home and leaving me with the coordination, the payment, and the aftermath. The pattern was set, though I was too naive to see it clearly. Every birthday, every anniversary, every holiday, every random occasion when someone decided the family needed to get together and celebrate our blessings. Somehow, through some mysterious process that no one ever explicitly discussed, it all became my responsibility. Not just the financial responsibility, though that was substantial, but the emotional labor too. I was the one remembering everyone's dietary restrictions, their food allergies, their personal dramas, and making sure feuding family members didn't end up at the same table. I was the one staying up to 3 a.m. the night before each event, double-checking every detail to ensure perfection. And the expenses? They kept expanding like some kind of malignant financial tumor. What started as a few $100s here and there metastasized into thousands. Custom catering from Valencia's for Aunt Cordelia's 55th birthday celebration, renting the entire conservatory at Moonstone Gardens for Uncle Bartholomew's retirement party, flying in Cousin Phoenix from Seattle for Persephone's promotion celebration, complete with luxury hotel accommodations and curated entertainment. I was hemorrhaging money faster than I could earn it, but every time I saw their faces, every time I heard those grateful thank yous, I told myself it was a worthwhile investment in family happiness.
But the real problem wasn't the money, devastating though it was to my personal finances. The real problem was the evolution of expectations. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being someone who chose to contribute to family events and became someone who was expected to produce them. Family gatherings weren't collaborative celebrations anymore. They were productions, and I was the sole producer, director, financier, and cleanup crew. Everyone else just showed up as guests at their own family celebrations, consumers of experiences I created for their enjoyment. I started noticing the subtle signs of how my role had changed, how conversations would pause when I walked into a room, then resume when I left, not because they were talking about anything secretive, but because they were discussing plans that they expected me to execute, without being consulted about the decision-making process. How nobody ever asked if I needed help with planning or setup, but they were always ready with suggestions about how I could improve future events. Maybe next time we could have it catered by that new place, Ember and Oak Bistro. Do you think you could get one of those photo booth setups like they had at the Morrison wedding? Could we maybe find a venue with better parking next time? Could we? Could you? The language revealed everything. They saw themselves as the creative directors and me as the execution team. They were comfortable making suggestions and expressing preferences, but the actual work of research, coordination, payment, and implementation was understood to be my domain. The breaking point should have come 2 years ago, but I didn't recognize it at the time. It was my own birthday, my 32nd, and for the first time in years, I decided I wasn't going to plan my own celebration. I was exhausted from organizing 3 family events in the previous 2 months, drowning in work from a particularly complex federal case involving interstate commerce law, and honestly just wanted someone else to take the initiative for once. I dropped hints for weeks leading up to the date. I wonder what I should do for my birthday this year. It's funny how birthdays feel different when you're in your 30s and so busy with work. I can't believe August is almost here already. This year has flown by. Nothing. Absolute radio silence. No one picked up on the hints. No one volunteered to plan anything. No one even acknowledged that my birthday was approaching. 3 days before my birthday, Persephone called. "Eva, what are you thinking for your birthday this weekend? Should we do dinner somewhere nice?" She said it like she was checking in on my progress with my own party planning, like she was offering to attend rather than offering to organize. I was hoping maybe someone else could plan something this year. I've been organizing a lot of events lately, and work has been incredibly intense. Oh, long pause. I could practically hear her mental gears turning, trying to process the unexpected concept that I might not want to coordinate my own birthday celebration. Well, I'm pretty swamped with the Henderson account launch, and Augustus has summer camp activities almost every day. Maybe we could just do something simple. You know what restaurants we all like.
you know what we all like. Translation, you figure out where to go and what to order, make the reservation, coordinate everyone's schedules, and handle the payment, and we'll show up if it's convenient and our schedules permit. I ended up celebrating my 32nd birthday alone at Aurelia, the exclusive rooftop restaurant overlooking Crystalline Bay. I brought a legal brief to review, ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than most people spend on a week's groceries, and watched the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. It was peaceful, sophisticated, and exactly what I needed after months of coordinating other people's happiness, but it also crystallized a realization I'd been avoiding for years. My family didn't see me as a person with needs, feelings, and desires. They saw me as a resource, a very convenient, very reliable resource, who made their lives easier and their celebrations more memorable. That birthday dinner was a turning point, though it took me months to fully understand what had shifted in my perspective. For the first time, I started paying attention to how my family talked about me, both to my face and in conversations I overheard. I wasn't Evangeline, the accomplished federal judge who had worked 16-hour days through law school and clerked for a Supreme Court justice. I wasn't Ava, the legal scholar who had published articles on constitutional law and been quoted in major newspapers. I was our Ava, the organized one, or lucky Ava with her government job, or simply Ava who's so good at handling these things. I had become a character in their stories rather than the author of my own narrative. But here's where this story gets truly complicated, where the real secrets and the genuine humiliation begin to make sense. You see, my family had something they'd never told each other, something so potentially explosive that it could destroy not just our social standing in Crystalline Heights, but our freedom, our careers, and our futures. And for the past 3 years, I had been the only person keeping those secrets contained, using my legal knowledge and judicial connections to protect them from consequences they didn't even know were threatening them.
It started with my uncle Bartholomew, and it happened in a way that should have taught me everything I needed to know about how my family really saw me and my role in their lives. We were cleaning up after Cousin Phoenix's engagement party at the Willowbrook Country Club. Well, I was cleaning up while everyone else had mysteriously remembered urgent appointments elsewhere when Bartholomew pulled me aside near the service entrance. "Ava," he said, and something in his voice made me stop stacking rental chairs and pay attention. He looked terrified, ashamed, and desperate all at once. "I need to tell you something, but I need you to promise you won't say anything to anyone else in the family." I should have said no immediately. I should have told him that family secrets are usually family problems, and I already had enough complications in my life without becoming the repository for everyone else's shame and guilt. But he looked so frightened, so genuinely panicked, that I couldn't turn away from someone who was clearly in serious trouble. "What's wrong, Uncle Bartholomew?" "I've been embezzling," he said, the words coming out in a rush like he'd been holding them in for months. Not just skimming a little from petty cash, but real embezzlement. From the Crystalline Heights Community Foundation. I've taken over $200,000 in the last 18 months. The amount made my stomach drop to my feet. The Crystalline Heights Community Foundation was one of the most respected charitable organizations in our area, trusted by wealthy donors to distribute millions of dollars to worthy causes throughout the region. Bartholomew was their treasurer, a position that had given him access to accounts and investment funds that most people would never dream of touching. "I just needed some cash flow to cover some investments that went bad," he continued, his voice shaking. "I was going to pay it back before anyone noticed, but the market kept dropping and I kept taking more to try to cover the previous losses. Now I'm in so deep that I can't see any way out." "Uncle Bartholomew, this isn't just about money," I said, my legal training kicking in automatically. "This is federal embezzlement. If they catch you, you're looking at 10 to 20 years in prison.
Your entire life will be destroyed." "I know," he whispered. "That's why I need your help. Not money. I know even you don't have that kind of cash. But legal help. Advice about how to handle this. Maybe ways to pay it back without anyone finding out." So I helped him. Not because I wanted to, but because the alternative was watching my uncle go to federal prison and destroy our family's reputation in the process. I used my legal expertise to help him navigate the complexities of financial restitution. I connected him with forensic accountants who specialized in embezzlement cases. I even used my judicial contacts to quietly inquire about prosecution patterns and plea bargain possibilities in case the worst-case scenario came to pass. More importantly, I helped him develop a payment plan that would restore the missing funds gradually in ways that wouldn't trigger immediate audits or investigations. It took months of careful maneuvering, but we managed to return most of the money through a series of anonymous donations and accounting corrections that I orchestrated using my understanding of financial law and institutional procedures. But that wasn't the end of it. That was just the beginning of my transformation from family member to family protector, from successful professional to secret crisis manager. 2 months later, cousin Thessaly came to me with her own confession, and the pattern began to reveal itself. We were at Persephone's housewarming party for her new condo in the Marina district, another event I had planned and funded, naturally, when Thessaly cornered me in the kitchen during dessert service. "Ava," she said, and glancing around to make sure no one was listening, "I need to talk to you about something serious, something I can't tell anyone else." I should have learned from the Bartholomew experience. I should have referred her to a lawyer, a therapist, a financial advisor, anyone except her cousin, who was already drowning in family obligations and secret-keeping responsibilities. But she looked so ashamed, so desperate for help, that I found myself nodding for her to continue. "I've been stealing from my law firm," she said. "Not big amounts, just small stuff here and there. But it's been going on for almost 2 years now." Thessaly worked at Davidson and Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the city, handling corporate mergers and acquisitions for major clients. The small stuff she was talking about turned out to be systematic theft of client expense funds, settlement money that should have been distributed to plaintiffs, and even petty cash from the firm's operating accounts. "I wasn't stealing for fun," she explained, as if that made it better. "I was trying to keep up with my lifestyle, you know? All my colleagues went to Ivy League schools and come from money. I was using the extra cash to buy the right clothes, eat at the right restaurants, live in the right neighborhood. I needed to fit in." The total amount was smaller than Bartholomew's embezzlement, only about $35,000, but the legal implications were just as serious. Lawyer theft from client accounts is one of the fastest ways to lose your bar license and face criminal prosecution. If Davidson and Associates discovered what she'd been doing, Thessaly would be disbarred, prosecuted, and probably imprisoned.
That brings us back to the wedding reception at Grandview Manor, where I was clearing tables while my family mingled with Crystalline Heights elite. I had spent the evening exactly as they'd planned, managing servers, coordinating dinner service, cleaning up spills. The perfect invisible servant at my own cousin's wedding. Then, Supreme Court Justice Margaret Whitmore approached the wedding coordinator near the head table. I was close enough to hear every word. "Excuse me," Justice Whitmore said. "Could you help me find Judge Williams? I was told she'd be here tonight, and I really must speak with her about the Morrison case appeal." The coordinator looked confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't see any Judge Williams on our guest list." "That's impossible," Justice Whitmore replied. "Judge Evangeline Williams is supposed to be family. She's the one who'll be handling the preliminary review for our Supreme Court docket next month." The entire conversation took place within earshot of my family. I watched their faces as they processed what they were hearing. And Cordelia's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Uncle Bartholomew's face went completely white. Thessaly actually dropped her dinner roll. Judge Evangeline Williams, the federal judge they'd been exploiting for legal advice while treating like hired help. The Eva who's so good at organizing things. The family member whose professional accomplishments they've never bothered to acknowledge or celebrate. Justice Whitmore spotted me then, still holding a stack of dirty plates. "Evangeline, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." The ballroom fell silent. 200 of Crystalline Heights' most prominent citizens watched as the Supreme Court justice approached their server. "Your Honor," I said, setting down the plates and straightening my posture. "I wasn't expecting to see you here tonight." "I couldn't miss celebrating Judge Williams's family, though I'm surprised to find you working instead of celebrating. Shouldn't the family be honoring their Supreme Court nominee tonight?" Supreme Court nominee. The words echoed across the silent ballroom like a thunderclap. That's when I made my choice. After years of protecting their secrets while they treated me like the help, it was time for some truth. "Actually, Your Honor, my family doesn't know about the nomination yet. They've been too busy having me coordinate their events and clean their tables to ask about my career." I turned to face my relatives, who were staring in absolute horror. But since we're all here together, maybe this is the perfect time to discuss how Uncle Bartholomew embezzled $200,000 from the community foundation, or how Thessaly stole from her law firm, or how Persephone has been defrauding her clients. The silence was deafening. Ophelia's perfect wedding had become a public confession session broadcast to everyone who mattered in our social circle. I've spent 3 years protecting all of you from federal prosecution while you treated me like your personal servant. But I'm done. The FBI files I've been quietly managing, the restitution payments I've been coordinating, the legal protections I've been providing, consider them revoked. Justice Whitmore looked stunned. The wedding guests were pulling out their phones. My family stood frozen, finally understanding that their helpful cousin Eva was actually one of the most powerful legal figures in the state. 6 months later, Uncle Bartholomew pled guilty to embezzlement. Thessaly was disbarred and served 18 months in federal prison. Persephone lost her business and paid hefty fines. Phoenix received probation for drug dealing. Our family's reputation in Crystalline Heights was destroyed. But honestly, I sleep better now than I have in years. Sometimes being a good family member means being willing to be seen as the bad guy. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their actions instead of enabling their worst behaviors. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop protecting people who never bothered to see your worth in the first place. I was confirmed to the Supreme Court last month. None of them attended the ceremony. But I also made one small change to my usual routine. For the first time in 3 years, I decided I wasn't going to protect anyone from the consequences of their actions. No more secret keeping, no more legal maneuvering, no more being the invisible safety net that kept our family's criminal activities from being discovered. The humiliation I was about to cause at that wedding wasn't about petty revenge or hurt feelings. It was about something much more serious. The truth about who we really were as a family, and what happened when the person holding everyone's secrets together finally decided she was done being taken for granted. And that truth was about to be revealed in the most public, most devastating way possible, right in front of Supreme Court Justice Margaret Whitmore, who had just asked the wedding coordinator to find Judge Williams at what everyone thought was simply a family celebration. Because what my family didn't know, what they had never bothered to ask or learn despite years of exploiting my legal expertise, was that Judge Williams wasn't just some random federal judge they might have heard about in passing. Judge Williams was me.